Hi, I want to talk about self-change and being able to identify changes within self and not just one has a tendency to, when we're working on ourselves, to only see the failures and to not see the areas where we've been successful in making changes. And I am currently walking the Destiny process, which is an online course, to become not, to birth myself from becoming a mind personality to actual life here in the physical, a fully physical being. And one of the areas that I've noticed I've changed is in identifying conflict friction much more readily. It's obviously not 100%, but I'll give you an example from yesterday where I noticed I have changed so that you can have some context to what I'm talking about. And it's a simple example, and that is my mother had told me that my sister brought her in some soup, borscht, which is a beet soup, and cabbage rolls into the hospital for my mom for lunch, which you would think is a nice thing, right? But immediately my mind went into a conflict friction situation, and I immediately went into pictures in my mind, memories, myself as a personality, a character. Instead of staying with reality and listening to my mother, I started having images in my mind. I went into competition as the sister, questioning, suspicion, judging my sister in all sorts of ways. It happened very quickly. And I did catch it also much quicker. And I stopped myself. Went back to breath and focusing on what my mom was saying. I was talking to her on the phone. Went back to that. And then, when I hung up, I did examine it. And I could see, I was able to simplify it much quicker. And I was able to see that in reality, my sister brought my mother in some food that my mom would have used to make at around a holiday time. She's of Ukrainian heritage, that she would really enjoy. And it was a good thing. It was considerate and positive, and they had a nice visit. And that's all it was. And it doesn't require anything from me except for listening to my mother in that moment. So I was able to see that disgruntled, competitive sister personality that I had created and brought with me to that moment and allowed to jump up in my mind, completely possess me. I could see that much quicker. Another point where I can see some self-change is I am not rushing as much. I have started to slow down. And in the slowing down, I definitely feel more calm inside. I was, and still am, to a large degree, a person. I didn't need a crisis to create a storm within myself. I often lived a storm that would take very little to create substantial anxiety. And you feel this very quickly as like a queasiness in the stomach, a tightening of your chest, the jaw would tighten, my breathing would become more shallow. I was often quite tense in my shoulders. So I'm just starting to notice, I'd say just in the last few weeks, that I am just more calm without calming myself down. So I'm noticing that it's just kind of the way I'm existing more. It's like, wow, I really, I'm not rushing. So the personality of me, it's always behind. There isn't enough time. I definitely, as the mind comes up with that thought, I was definitely consciously stopping that thought and breathing, bringing myself back to breath. So I think one of the consequences, positive consequences, results of this is that there is a calming of my beingness inside as I realize the ridiculous of that thought, that there isn't enough time. It is just a thought. I can only do things one breath at a time. So that's one of the results, is I'm noticing a calmness within as I am rushing less often. And I just wanted to mention one more point where I can see a significant change within myself, and that would be in making decisions. I definitely see a change, and these are all small things, but they all add up, in not always assuming the worst, looking at the worst case scenario when I'm making a decision. I can also see how my thoughts, there's a continual cycle of them. When I've been able to slow myself down, I see how often the same thoughts come up, and they would be like torturing me. There seemed to be no solution. I think that one of the reasons, and so in the point of decision making, I am starting to be able to understand that I make a decision in certain moments. Okay, this is when I'm going to look at home finances. And then I look at it on paper and I write it down, I get organized, talk to my husband perhaps about this and that. And then I am more aware of myself, so that if it comes up again and we're actually done, we've put it away, leave it. And that takes a lot of self-trust, and I'm building that. But I'm able to say to myself now, okay, there it is. It actually is useless to go over again. It's just repeating and repeating, and actually kind of builds on itself, and more things would come up. But I could see the uselessness of this. It didn't accomplish anything more. It did not really add to that. Now, if there was a point that came up that really was significant, okay, I'll go write it down. And I said, okay, that's written down. To be able to remind myself the important things I do have written down, so that when I revisit that, great. But I don't need to stay with all that doubt. So it's like, sat down, I looked at the paper, I looked at the home finance, we made some decisions, and leave it. And then it comes up. A lot of that is fear. That would be the final point I would mention. Through walking the Destiny process, I've been doing this now. I apologize, I should have said that at the beginning of the interview. I guess 2 years. Through walking the Destiny process, one of the tools that we use is writing. And I have done some writing about fear, a number of different blogs on fear. And I will put the links below to all these things I'm talking about. So in examining my fear, and especially a lot of fear goes to fear of death, I can see slowly a small but significant change in letting go of fear. In many ways, and I've looked at it through the help, the assistance, and the support of many of the Destonians. And I can see how, again, there is a point that builds within me. It accumulates from just one thought. And I can see the uselessness in this. I can understand that I am not a picture, that I have a beingness that is myself. I am starting to understand that I am connected with everything as life. There's a really cool physics blog one of the Estonians is writing, and I can see that and understand that in an equation, both sides are equal, It's kind of garbage in, garbage out. You've heard of that kind of thing. So I create myself in each moment here in the physical. I can see the things happen breath by breath. And doing what I've created myself as took 52 years. And that I trust myself to understand that more thinking, more fear is not going to solve anything. That solutions are coming slowly. So there's a lot of kind of self-trust in not following the mind. So I'm trusting more that it's okay to not follow my mind. I actually could go on further. Like I say, these are small changes, but many small changes over a long period of time add up to significant changes. So I encourage you to investigate destiny and the process of birthing oneself as life in the physical.